everyone, it's Jessie from b.a.r.e Flower Farm. Got some exciting news. We have Ranunculus corms available. So you might have heard me reference in some other videos, I am selling Ranunculus corms this year. And I wanted to do a brief video just talking about the objective intent and where you can grab yourself some corms. So I am just, a second year flower farmer, and last year I wanted to grow Ranunculus. I wanted to buy them in wholesale pricing, but not necessarily take on that quantity. So I started selling corms and realized that there were a lot of people who were in kind of like a similar boat where they wanted to grow anywhere from like 25 to 100 Ranunculus, but were basically paying a little bit more retail pricing for those kind of corms. So I saw that gap and I started selling Ranunculus corms and pretty much sold out. So doing that again this year and adding another variety. So if I take a step back, one of the things and one of the main reasons why I started flower farming was because I wanted to lead a more sustainable lifestyle and I wanted to have an impact on others who wanted to pursue something very similar. And I think starting a flower farm and growing is one of the best ways to do so. Not only are we creating ecosystems in our backyards or wherever we're growing, but we're also potentially lowering the carbon footprint of international flowers. So I'm saying this because I think the more people who are able to grow things like Ranunculus, especially in the early spring where people are hungry for flowers, there's a lot of events and all that stuff, is a better world overall because it means that there are more local flowers. And my intent is to sell these Ranunculus corms at a reasonable price that is non-retail and more towards the wholesale arena for those who are looking to buy anywhere from 25 to up to 250 corms. And I had done a bit of a survey in the sense of I had forms that people filled out for anyone who is interested. And I saw that the majority of people were looking to buy about 50 corms. And at the end of the day, we can all wait for the clearance corms during December. Holland bulbs, Tulip World even, like they all have these clearance corms. And I think that's a great way for someone who is a hobby gardener to get their feet wet with Ranunculus at very low risk. I mean, they sell them for dirt cheap at that time of year. The problem with those corms for a grower who is looking to sell is that sometimes those corms don't necessarily come true to color. You might get a mix and all of them turn out to be like yellow or orange. Sometimes the corms are not super great in quality. I would say that I've done it before. Everything's always grown for me. It's more about the color thing. So if you're someone who is looking to sell, especially to florists or retail, and you want more consistency and you want to know what to expect, this might be a better route for you. So let's talk about what I'm selling. Every order is going to come with this little postcard, and this postcard actually has all of the different varieties and colors that I am selling. So I'm selling two varieties. I'm selling Aviv and I'm selling Tecolote, I think it's Tecolote, however you say it. The Tecolote corms are a little bit more expensive and they are jumbo. So I pre-sprouted some and I want to show you what they look like. They're this big. This is a really, really big corm. So these are priced at just above $1. And the reason why they're priced more is because, well, you get more per corm in terms of blooms. There's supposed to be a little bit more bigger bloom heads, but I caution people who have never grown Ranunculus because Ranunculus is a tricky crop. I always say start with cheaper corms, get that practice in, and then you can graduate to something like this. But if you're someone who has grown Ranunculus successfully and you want more production, go with a bigger corm. This is a good one, and it's 25 corms for $34.99. That's $34.99, including shipping, only for US residents. So sorry for non-US folks, but that is a really good price because I've already started selling out of the salmon color. So we still have the Tecolote and the pastel mix. So for everyone else who wants cheaper corms, I am selling the Aviv variety. And let me show you what an Aviv corm looks like. It looks like this. So definitely smaller than the jumbo Tecolote variety, but still a pretty good size. These are supposed to be size 7+, and I would say for the most part they are. If you've ever bought from me, I always give extras because sometimes the corms are not all 7+. Sometimes there might be some shipping damages, or like you might be pre-sprouting them and something happens. So I put a few extra in for buffer. These are really good corms to start off with because they're a lot cheaper. So when I do the math on how much I'm selling a corm for, it goes anywhere from 39 cents all the way up to 79 cents. And if you were to do the math on dividing the total price divided by the number of corms, you're gonna get something a little bit higher because I'm factoring the cost of shipping for me, the cost of the boxes, the cost of the labels, all that good stuff. And then also I am packing a few extra. So you are going to end up averaging closer to that 39 to 79 cents a corm. These corms are really good. I grew them last year. I didn't have the most successful crop, but of the ones that I grew, they came out looking really great. The florists really don't have, most of them don't really have a preference for variety. Some of them do know about like the Italians and you know, some of the more, we'll call it expensive varieties. So they may have requests, but for the most part, most florists are just happy to get local Ranunculus. So this is a really good corm to start off with, and I'm selling them at starting in 25 increments to 50, 100, 250, and obviously the more you go up, the cheaper it is. And you can choose from color, so you can buy straight of a single color, or I also offer a mix. So for example, one of the mixes is a Tecolote mix. So you'll get Tecolote orange, Tecolote cafe, Tecolote pink. Tecolote is, it's kind of more like variegated in terms of the petal color. So it's a very unique type of color, but some people like the straight whites, the straight pinks, the roses. So you'll see online, there's a lot to choose from. I'm gonna put the link below. I have quite a bit of corms. I will say that right now the pricing is lower than actually what I charged last year, but the pricing will go up in January. So one of the things that I am doing is obviously I am upfronting the cash to pay for all of these corms, and then I am holding it. So in some ways I am going to factor in that holding charge, especially come January when people are getting ready to pre-soak. For me, I always say if you're in zone 6 or above, you should consider overwintering. Now, zone 6 is not always a guarantee. Last year we had a very mild winter, so it was a great winter to overwinter. But if you are overwintering in zone 6 and 7, you definitely need protection. This is not a set it and forget it type of crop. I'm always nervous when the average consumer or retail customer wants to buy corms because I'm always like, you may not be able to get a crop, right? So I say do your research. I'm gonna put a couple of links below in terms of resources that I found helpful for me. Culture sheets are always very helpful, but there's also been some blog posts by Jennie Love as well as Florette that I think people should read if you haven't yet. So I would consider overwintering maybe about 25 to 30% of whatever you buy, and then holding the others till next year to start for spring. And if both succeed, then you'll get a longer succession of blooms. And if one doesn't, then hopefully you actually learn from your mistakes or whatever it is. But if you can overwinter successfully, you will get more blooms because you'll have a longer blooming period. And a lot of times those blooms are just so much better than the ones that you get in spring, because most of us live in an area that is not really ideal climates for ranunculus. Ranunculus like it cool, they like cool nights, they like full sun. But for a lot of us, we go from basically winter, we have like 2 weeks of spring, and then we go straight into summertime weather. So that's not ideal for ranunculus, and they will go into dormancy when the soil temperature is above like 70 degrees. So just all that stuff to keep in mind if you do plan on growing ranunculus. One other thing I want to talk about, this is really important to me. I used to have a side hustle soap company that was purely e-commerce, and I became obsessed with making sure, one, that all of the stuff that I shipped out was easily recyclable. I think it is up to the business to make it as easy as possible for the consumer to recycle everything. And the other thing that I became obsessed with was making sure that my boxes were appropriate for the size shipment that I was sending out. One of my biggest pet peeves is receiving an item in a really, really big box with a lot of dead space. Because if you think about how boxes travel, they travel through truck, they travel through air. If you have an inefficient box and you have a lot of those, they're taking up a lot of square footage on whatever vehicle they're traveling, and it creates a much bigger carbon footprint than it really needs to have. So for me, finding that right size box is really important. So I bring this up because hopefully when you get my Ranunculus corms, things will be snugly packaged. There's not going to be a lot of wasted space. And then the other thing is I am very mindful about what I'm putting on the box. So obviously cardboard boxes are recyclable, but what I hate is having to strip the clear tape off. It's not great for the machinery that's doing the recycling, assuming that the box does get recycled. So I use a craft paper tape with an adhesive that is recyclable. In fact, this is from Eco Enclosed. So it's a water-based adhesive. So I spray water on it, and then it has a really, really tight seal. And you can see it says thoughtfully packaged with with eco-friendly shipping supplies. Sometimes I love to reuse boxes, but in this case, I'm shipping in such a high volume that most of my boxes are post-recycled box material. The other thing that people don't think about is the shipping label itself. These are shipping labels that are recyclable, both the liner and the label itself. Most labels, even though they all look similar, this is a thermal printer label. It's a 4x6 label. Most of them are actually not recyclable, which means you have to peel them off. This one, you don't have to. So when you get my package, you're gonna have the box, you're gonna have the labels, the tape, the postcard, a paper bag to contain the corms that you're ordering. You take out the corms and then you can literally put everything into the recycling bin. So super short video. Again, link is below in terms of where you can go to find my corms. My website is www.b.a.r.e.flowerfarm.com. If you go to the shop tab, you will see the Ranunculus corms. I have started pre-sprouting because I'm doing an experiment to see if I can grow them in the winter. And yeah, I'm just, I have never been able to get a really, really great Ranunculus crop. Granted, I've only really been 1 year growing because the first year I grew in a crate since we were moving at the time, but I'm really hoping to have better luck this year. So I'm hoping that these prices make it more reasonable for you as a smaller grower to afford good quality corms. One thing I didn't mention is that Aviv is not a variety that is often talked about or sold. Like you probably hear more about amandine or the Tecolote, but Aviv is a variety that is specifically bred for cut flower production. They do have long stems, they have a lot of ruffles and layers, and they can produce a really, really good crop when grown well. In fact, a lot of times when you have those blown open centers and not a lot of layers, it's less to do with the corm and it's more to do with the plant being stressed. So I had luck with really good quality Ranunculus, and I also had some very bad Ranunculus blooms that were open face, one layer, and those were very stressed plants. And I know this because the aphids were all over them versus some of the other ones. In my experience, the whites bloom first. So if that's important for you, you may want to have some white in there. But overall, I would say that Aviv is a really good one to start off with. So this is a great way of getting some affordable corns for you. It's also a great way of supporting me and putting out some content and basically paying for some of my failures. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I try to ship within 2 to 3 business days. And if you order a mix, they will come in one bag. So they're not going to be labeled per color, but you'll be able to get a variety. So again, questions in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.